What if I told you that you've never actually seen the world as it truly is? Not once. Everything you perceive, the world around you, your own thoughts, even your sense of self is a story, a map, constructed inside your mind. But what happens when that map, the one that governs all your common sense, turns out to be fundamentally wrong? Today, we journey to the absolute edge of science to discover that reality is far stranger, more mysterious, and more connected to our own consciousness than we ever imagined. The famous philosopher Alfred Korzybski once said, "The map is not the territory." This is one of the most important ideas for the process of awakening. As we discussed in our Plato's Cave episode, your brain doesn't experience reality directly. It builds a simplified model, a mental map, based on sensory data. This map is, by necessity, an abstraction. It leaves out an infinite amount of detail to present a workable, navigable picture. Think about language itself. The word water is not the wet, life-giving substance. It is a symbol on a map. In the same way, your thoughts, beliefs, and conceptual models are just markings on your internal map. Crucially, this map isn't a passive reflection. It's an active filter. It imposes a structure on your experience, often without you even realizing it. The danger comes when we mistake the map for the territory, when we treat our simplified models as the absolute truth. This leads to dogma and rigidity, trapping us in a world of our own making. The awakening process in this context is the act of becoming aware of the structural limitations of your own map. It is realizing that to truly see the territory, you need as many different maps or perspectives as you can possibly imagine. And as it turns out, this isn't just a psychological concept. It is the very foundation of how science understands the universe. Science doesn't have one single perfect map of reality. Instead, it has a collection of highly specialized maps, each brilliantly describing its own scale and territory, and each failing when applied outside its own domain. At our scale, the microscope, we have the map of the classical physics. The laws of Newton describe the elegant deterministic dance of celestial bodies and the arc of a thrown ball. This map is built on certainty and predictability, but try to use its rules to explain why a computer chip works or how the sun shines, and it fails completely. The world of the living requires another map, biology. This map introduces a new kind of logic altogether, the logic of survival, replication, and information encoded in the DNA. A physicist can describe the molecules in a cell, but only a biologist's map can explain how cells survive. Its core principles, like natural selection, are meaningless for describing a star or a chemical bond. Zooming in, we find the map of chemistry. It is the map of how the quantum rules give birth to the world of shapes, structures, and reactions. A chemist uses powerful principles of bonding and reactivity, a higher-level language that's far more practical for its domain than calculating the behavior of every single electron. This map is indispensable for creating medicines and materials. However, while chemistry can brilliantly explain how a specific protein folds into a complex shape, it doesn't have the tools to explain why that shape evolved over millions of years to perform a specific function that helps an organism survive. Finally, at the very bottom, we have the map of quantum mechanics. This is our most fundamental description of matter and energy, but its rules of probability, superposition, and uncertainty are bizarre and totally alien to the predictable, common-sense world of our macro-scale map. Each of these maps is a monumental achievement, but the lesson is profound. The laws that govern one level of reality do not govern another. There is no single one-size-fits-all map, and this leads us to the biggest mapping problem in all science. The frontier of modern physics is defined by a clash between our two most fundamental maps, the map of the very large and the map of the very small. General relativity is Einstein's masterpiece, or map for the cosmos. It describes gravity as the curvature of a smooth, continuous fabric of space and time. It governs the dance of galaxies and the expansion of the universe. Quantum mechanics, on the other hand, is our map for the atomic and subatomic realm. It describes a world that is grainy, pixelated, and ruled by probability. The conflict can be boiled down to this: smooth versus grainy. General relativity paints a picture of an analog reality that curves and flows. Quantum mechanics insists that at its foundation, reality is discrete, quantized, digital. You cannot simply glue a smooth sheet on a pixelated grid. The math breaks. Furthermore, the two theories treat time in radical different and irreconcilable ways. In quantum mechanics, time is a universal absolute background, a rigid stage on which events unfold. In general relativity, time is not absolute. It is dynamic, relative, and woven into the malleable fabric of space-time, where it can be stretched and squeezed by gravity. These two conceptions of time cannot be both fundamentally true. This profound incompatibility proves that, despite our incredible progress, we still lack a truly unified map of the territory. So, what happens when we peek beyond our maps? We find a reality that defies common sense. This is best shown by the famous double-slit experiment. When you fire electrons one by one at a screen with two slits, they don't form two simple lines, as particles should. They create a wave-like interference pattern, as if each electron passed through both slits at once. This reveals the wave-particle duality. A quantum entity is both a particle and a wave simultaneously. refusing to be confined to our simple categories. But the truly bizarre part is the observer effect. The moment you try to measure which slit the electron goes through, the wave pattern vanishes. The very act of observing, of interacting with the system to create a data point on your map, forces the territory to abandon its cloud of possibilities and snap in a single concrete reality. This strange behavior points to two other quantum principles. Superposition. A particle exists in a combination of all its possible states at once. A wave function of potentiality until it is measured. It isn't just that we don't know its state. In a very real sense, it has no single state until we look at it, as in a measurement. And entanglement, what Einstein called spook action at distance. To understand why it's so spooky, we need to look at our common sense idea of reality, which is local. In a local universe, for one object to influence another, something must travel between them. A signal, a force, or a physical object has to cross the space separating them, and that signal cannot travel faster than the speed of light. If you push a domino, it locally knocks over the next one. This is the universal speed limit that supports all classical physics. Entanglement violates this rule. The connection between entangled particles is non-local, even when separated by vast distances. Measuring a property of one particle instantly influences the state of the partner. This influence is instantaneous, with no signal traveling through the space between them. Imagine you have a pair of quantum dice. They are linked, but they don't have a number until one is rolled. The moment you rolled one in London, and it comes up as a 4, for example, you know its partner in New York instantly becomes a 4 as well. It is not that the information was hidden and traveled between them. The outcome itself was determined everywhere at once, in a single unified event. This connection is real, proven by experiments and profoundly non-local. It is a hint that at the deepest level, our concept of separate, distant objects is a deep illusion. The entangled particles aren't two things communicating. They remain one system, defying our common sense map of space and time. And for those of you who watched our episode on synchronicity, this should be incredibly familiar. This quantum weirdness is so profound that scientists themselves don't agree on what it means for the nature of reality. To understand their competing maps, we first need to look at one of the most famous thought experiments in physics, the Schrödinger's cat. Imagine a cat is placed in a sealed steel box, along with a tiny radioactive atom and a vial of poison. If the atom decays, a purely random quantum event, it will trigger a mechanism that shatters the vial, killing the cat. If the atom doesn't decay, the cat remains alive. The box is sealed for 1 hour. According to quantum mechanics, until we measure it, the atom is in a superposition of both states. It has both decayed and not decayed at the same time. But because the cat's fate is directly linked to the atom, this means that the cat itself is also in a superposition state. It is simultaneously alive and dead. This paradox highlights the bizarre clash between the fuzzy, probabilistic quantum map and our everyday common sense map, where the cat can only be in one defined state. And how the two most famous interpretations of quantum mechanics solve this paradox. The Copenhagen interpretation, which is the standard view, accepts the paradox at face value. It states that as long as the box closed, the cat and the atom exist in a single system described by one wave function. They truly are in a blended state of all possibilities. The cat is a ghostly mix of alive and dead. The magic happens at the moment of measurement. When you open the box to check on the cat, your observation forces the wave function to collapse. At that instant, reality is forced to abandon the superposition and choose one definite outcome. You will find either a 100% alive cat or a 100% dead cat. The price of this map is a deep and unsettling mystery at the heart of measurement. Reality, in this view, seems to wait for an observer to interact with it before it becomes real. The many worlds interpretation offers a more radical and elegant solution by stating that the wave function never collapses. When the radioactive atoms enter its superposition, the entire universe, including you and the box, branches into two separate timelines. In one universe, the atom decayed, the poison was released, and the cat is dead. In another parallel universe, the atom did not decay, and the cat is alive. When you open the box, you don't collapse reality. You simply find out which branch of the multiverse you are on. There is another version of you in another world who saw the opposite result. The cost of this mathematical elegance is the staggering idea of an infinite number of parallel universes being created every single moment, for every single quantum event. So, what does this all mean for our awakening process? It reveals the most profound truth. The map maker is part of the territory. Just as science uses different maps for physics, chemistry, and biology, we use different maps in our lives. The map of our professional self, our family self, or private self. Awakening is recognizing that none of these maps is the complete territory of who we are. We begin life with a simple common sense map, only to find that experience presents us with paradox and mysteries our map cannot explain. This is a perfect parallel for the personal awakening. The process of shifting your identity from the contents of your minds, your thoughts, your beliefs, your ego's story, your map, to the awareness in which the map appears. You realize you're not the character in the story. You are the space in which the story is told. The journey from the classical to the quantum world is not just a scientific story. It is a parable for our own growth. Embracing this uncertainty, this state of not knowing, is not a failure to find the answer. It is the very process of becoming awake. The goal is not to find one final perfect map, but to learn to live with the humility and wonder of an explorer who knows their map is and always will be temporary and limited. In this channel, we produce our best content to help your awakening process. We discuss reality, psychology, physics, metaphysics, philosophy, spirituality, and magic, always in a way that can make sense to the rational but open minds. Explore the rest of our videos, as each one is a little piece of the jigsaw that can change your life. So remember to like, subscribe, activate the bell, and comment below. Thank you for watching and for your time. Be open, be good, and be responsible. See you soon in another video. Bye bye.